Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, Birdland? Stephen Heckman here for the Final Strike podcast brought to you by the Baltimore Battery, and I hope you're having a wonderful and safe 4th of July weekend. We come to you after the Baltimore Orioles were unable to complete a sweep of the Cincinnati Reds. Unfortunately, they were unable also to complete their first 4-game winning streak of the season. They had their 7th opportunity to complete that and failed, unfortunately, once again. But they do walk out of Cincinnati with a 2-game to 1 series win over the Reds. Won 3 in a row before they end up dropping the game. They are off tomorrow before they welcome the Cubs to Camden Yards. They will then play the Royals for 3 games after that before the All-Star break begins. So we have 6 games left until the All-Star break. Adley Rutschman is the lone All-Star at this time for the Baltimore Orioles. A lot of people do feel that Pete Alonso did get snubbed, but even Pete Alonso himself, as quote-unquote he said, he'll call a spade a spade. There are a lot more deserving first basemen than he who deserved to be there. So we will see what happens with that going forward. Though Pete Alonso is playing probably one of the best first base I've seen from him in a while, offensively and defensively. He did start slow on the offensive side of the ball, but he has picked up rapidly, and he does have 60 RBIs on the season to lead the Baltimore Orioles. So we'll see what happens with that going forward. As if to rub a little salt in the wound, Brian Baker of the Tampa Bay Rays, yes, the former Baltimore Oriole Brian Baker, is actually going to the All-Star game as a Tampa Bay Ray. He does have 23 saves on the season, which only adds to the conundrum of Ryan Helsley, who is back on the IL with elbow inflammation. The $28 million 2-year contract that he signed with us is looking real bad right now, as he's only appeared in a whopping 17 games. Poor Michael Elias has got to be scratching his head because this is the second closer he's signed with Felix Bautista, unfortunately out, and it's the second closer that's blown up in that role for us. So I don't know. As much as he is good at discovering and finding talent, this is not working right now when it comes to closers. Although Albernaz might have finally taken my advice and put Tyler Wells in that role, because Tyler Wells, for the first time in his career as a Baltimore Oriole, has gotten back-to-back saves. Kudos to him. He honestly is built for the closer's role. He has the moxie, he has the grit, and he has the stuff to actually fill the role. And I think one of the biggest problems with our bullpen as of late has been the fact that nobody actually has a defined role in the bullpen. And I think why that hurts people is if you don't know what your role is, you don't know how to prepare for it. Closer prepares differently than a guy who's a setup man, or a guy who's a long relief man, or a guy who's going to come in who's just a lefty specialist or righty specialist, stuff like that. And I know the righty-lefty specialist is kind of out of baseball because, as long as you're not ending an inning or, your starting pitcher leaving after, starting a pitch, if you're starting an inning, if you're a pitcher coming into a game, you have to face a minimum of 3 batters. Unless it ends an inning or there's a long rain delay. So, the lefty and righty specialist, quote unquote, does not exist like it used to, where you could have a guy come in and face 1 batter and then that'd be it. Those types of things are kind of on the wayside, though you kind of still can get around it in certain ways, in certain aspects, depending how you deploy your bullpen and starting pitchers. Like today with Kyle Bradish, Ben McDonald was talking about the Baltimore Orioles could possibly go to a 6-man rotation after the All-Star break because they want to keep Kyle Bradish ready for the longer part of the season, and you're going to need him down the stretch. Very true. Then you have Craig Albernaz come out, talk to Kyle Bradish after he had a man on base, goes back into the dugout. Next batter, double down the line. Game goes from 2-1 to 3-1. Why is that significant? Because the Baltimore Orioles scored in the top of the ninth, and instead of having a 2-2 tie ball game, the Baltimore Orioles have a 3-2 game and end up losing the game with the bases loaded. So, I take that back. Bases weren't loaded. We did score on a sac fly from Gunnar Henderson. We had runners on first and second. I digress, though. If you want to keep your best pitcher available for down the stretch, why give him the option to extend an inning if you're concerned about having him prepared for down the stretch? And I know it's one batter, but at that point, he had 106 pitches. One more batter, yes. Different things could happen. The next batter could go on for 14 pitches. Then you have 120 pitches, and you've extended the pitch count that you didn't need to. He could have hit a home run. Yes, he could have struck out. Yes, he could have grounded out. Yes, he could have flown out. As is, hindsight in 2020, he went and hit a ground rule double. Not a ground rule double. He hit a double down the line, or run scoring double is what I meant to say. Excuse me. Hit a run scoring double, ended up being the difference maker in the game because the Cincinnati Reds won 3-2. And Bradish pitched a hell of a game. Excuse me. Under normal circumstances, if this was not his second full year coming, well, not even his second full year, because it's his first full year back from Tommy John surgery. Remember, he only pitched in 8 games last season for the Baltimore Orioles. So this technically is his first full year. If your goal was to keep him fresh for down the stretch, there should have been no question when you came out there. He should have come out of the game. And this is one of my problems with Craig Albernaz. Yes, I know he is a rookie manager, but these are the small things that are creating the bigger problems because these small things tend to be what is creeping up. He does not know how to handle the pitching staff or the bullpen. Whether it's I just drew a blank with the name I was going with. Troy Gibson going 4 innings and 65 pitches and coming out of the game after he struck out 3 straight batters, hitting 97 and 98 a couple weeks ago. And then the bullpen comes in, ends up blowing the game, and we end up losing. And the decision for that to happen was because we wanted to get the bullpen some work. I'm sorry, this is not spring training. This is the regular season. We're trying to win games. This isn't, I need to get the bullpen some work. This is, we're out here to win ball games. One, you have a rookie pitcher who has pitched fairly good, who just blew fastballs by the order and set down the order on strikeouts. And you're going to pull him after 65 pitches in 4 innings at that. So his pitch count wasn't even where it needed to be, but you wouldn't even give him the extra inning to get to be on record for the win, which was one problem. 2, you not only put his confidence into a position of did he do something wrong, but after having such a good inning, after having a shaky inning before that, you pulled him. His following outing, he came out and he got blasted. So that's got to be weighing in the back of his mind. You see things like Trevor Rogers, who had been struggling for 4 or 5 straight starts, go into a game, go 7 innings, has not pitched into the 7th or 8th inning in quite some time with 85 pitches, and you leave him in the extra inning where he ends up blowing the game and the Orioles end up losing instead of going to your bullpen. And it's later on record as Trevor Rod saying he was a little fatigued. Those types of things, as a manager, you've got to get away from having happen. It is your responsibility to run the team, not the team run the manager. I know as a first-year manager that Craig Albernaz wants to be on the good side of the team and the players. It's fine. But one of the things Albernaz was brought in here to do was take these players and get them over the hump. This is a team that had early season expectations of getting into the playoffs and taking that next step in the playoffs, not just getting to the playoffs and bowing out. Now, outside of having a weak AL postseason race, the Orioles honestly would be out of it. But because the AL currently only has 5 winning teams, with 2 of those teams barely over 500, the Orioles can continue to play the type of baseball that they're playing and still be in the wild card hunt, which is pretty sad. And I hate to say that. I mean, it gives the team hope when they really should not have hope. They're guaranteed to have a losing record at the All-Star break. They could win all 6 games going forward to the All-Star break, and they still would be 48-49. Which at that point, at 96 games, you don't have much of an air margin to screw up. As is right now, when you look at it, the Orioles currently sit back at 4 games out of the wild card race. 4 games. 7 games under 500, they sit 4 games out of the wild card race. And when I sit here and look at this, the best team, 2 best teams in the American League, honestly, are the Tampa Bay Rays and the New York Yankees. And the sad thing to say about the New York Yankees is they're 1-9 in their last 10 and still are 49-40. The next best team after them sits the Chicago White Sox, who are 46-42, 4 games over 500. Then you have Cleveland, who is 47-43, 4 games over 500. Seattle and Texas, 46-44, 45-44. Occupy the next 2 playoff spots. There you go. That's the AL American League. That is the American League for you. Everybody else, Houston, 1.5 games back of the 3rd wildcard spot. They're under 500. Minnesota, 2 games back, 3 games under 500. Toronto, 5 games under 500, 3 games back. Us, 7 games back, 4 games under 500. Athletics, 7 games back, 4 games under 500. Or 7 games under 500, 4 games back. Boston, 9 games, 5 games back. The worst team in the American League, 36-54. 36-54. Nearly 20 games under 500, only sits 9.5 games out of the wild card race. That's how bad the American League postseason race is. And what's worse is if you actually go into the divisional standings, it's even worse. I mean, outside the Tampa Bay Rays and New York Yankees, the AL East is just between them. Toronto's 11 games back, Baltimore 12 games back, Boston 13 games back in the division race. So the AL East is between 2 teams. But you go over to the AL Central, White Sox and Cleveland are virtually tied. They're separated by percentage points. One has a 523 winning percentage, one a 522. But Minnesota's is 3.5 games back, Detroit 7.5 games back. Go to the AL West. Texas is a half game back, Houston 2 games back, Athletics 4.5 games back. I hate to say it, but the parity in baseball has actually made the AL worse. You go over to the NL, it's a whole different ballgame. I mean, the NL, I mean, you go over to the NL, I mean, you have the AL East. Now, they have 4 teams that are over 500 in the AL East, and even though they have 4 teams, the Nationals are 46-45. They're 7.5 games back of the AL East lead. Miami is 48-42, is within 5 games, which that's not bad going into the All-Star break right now. But you go to the NL Central, and third place, 47-40, is 7 games back. Second place is 5.5 games back, and that's Chicago, and they're 10 games over 500. That's how good Milwaukee's been playing. You go to the NL West, which the NL West is got the Dodgers. Second place team, who Arizona is 14 games behind the first place team. So there's how big a gap they are there. But then when you go to their wild card standings, okay, you go to the NL wild card standings, and you've got 5 teams within 4.5 games of third place, and then Cincinnati 7 games within the final spot. San Francisco's 10.5 games back, the Mets 11.5, and Colorado 12.5. So there is parity over there, but at least their wild card leaders all have winning records. And when you get down to Arizona, who's 44-44, they're 3.5 games back. But there's at least 3 teams ahead of them, all with winning records. So the parity in baseball is hurting the AL worse than it's hurting the NL. And the sad thing about it is it's going to make it a little bit harder for Baltimore to decide what to do as the trade deadline approaches. So unless we have a long losing streak or unless we have a long winning streak, we're basically going to be kind of in limbo on what we need to do and how we need to handle things. I digress because it's interesting. Over the last month, the Baltimore starting rotation has actually been a top 5 rotation. So there's that. I mean, you got Trevor Rogers seems to be getting back to normal. Kyle Bradish, he did have a hiccup last week, which didn't pitch bad. I mean, his walks are what killed him and some defensive miscues. He only gave up 1 hit. But, he still took the loss. He took the loss today after pitching a beautiful game. He had 1 bad inning, and it really wasn't a horrible inning. He gave up a hit, and then even Ben McDonald said the pitch that he gave the home run up on was not a bad pitch. It just the guy squared up on it right, it hung a little bit, it broke a little bit too late. But after that, I mean, he pitched a hell of a game. He actually went ahead in his record for the amount of ground ball outs he'd done in a game. So he didn't pitch horribly. Our lineup just once again failed to come through when it needed to. And by the time it did start to come through, it was a little bit too late. So it's interesting we talk about that because one of my friends and me were talking about this the other day, and they're like, what is missing from turning this team around? And it's like, there's, maybe a piece here, maybe a piece there and everything that could do it. But when we think about it, coaching wise, what could be missing? And, it's interesting. He brought up, there are former players that, could be the missing link, that their experience and what they've accomplished could be something that could bring these kids' attention to the forefront and maybe give that extra step to them. And when you think about it, it's really not too far out of the question. Like Robinson Chirinos, when he was with Brandon Hyde, Robinson Chirinos was not a bad pick as a bench coach. His expertise came in handy. You look at what Albernaz has done between Basayo and Rushman this year, and it's the best catching tandem in baseball. Offensively, it's one of the best in baseball. And what's interesting is when you actually look at them on the team, they're actually 2 and 3 on the team in RBIs. They've actually passed Gunnar Henderson in that category. Gunnar Henderson did have an RBI today. His 10-game hitting streak also came to an end with an 0 for 4 performance. He did have a sac fly, but once again, Gunnar Henderson and Basayo are the ones ahead of him in the RBI race for the team. And then you have Pete Alonso, who's got 60, so he's far ahead of them. But you get players who have experience in the majors and have taken those rides through the postseason or even into the World Series, who have had Hall of Fame careers. Players tend to perk up and listen to those kind of players. And when you go through and look at the managerial staff and the coaching staff that the Orioles have, you don't see that. You don't see those types of players on the team. Now, in spring training, yes, we get, certain coaches or certain players that come in, as guest coaches and guest hosts. Eddie Murray, I know, has come in. One of the owners of the team, you have Cal Ripken Jr., who I'm sure is available, will talk to any player. Ben McDonald's offered. Jim Palmer does talk to the pitchers. So, you do have certain players around the team, but on a regular basis, Brooks Robinson, when he was alive, used to come and talk to the team. And, a lot of the players used to, it was a different vibe after he talked to the team. They used to talk about how his expertise and some of the knowledge that he would pass on to them, how different it made them feel. And when I was talking to my buddy about this, that is something that, you think about. And it's like last year when we brought in the advisor to the 2 hitting coaches. I'm still not a fan of the double hitting coach thing. How different the team looked at the plate. And, it was something that Ben McDonald was talking about today coming into this game. Over the last 3 games, we have had 18 walks as a team coming into today. The problem with that is we're 4th in the majors in walks as a team. We're also 5th in the majors in strikeouts. So we're basically just canceling those things out. So if we get somebody who has gone through the rigors of a season and gone into the postseason and gone into the World Series and done it throughout their career a few times, somebody who has had a good enough career that could be considered Hall of Fame worthy or even a Hall of Fame career, that could be that boost that could push the team maybe to take that step forward and make them think, hey, because they did things this way or did things that way, maybe this is what we need to start looking for or looking at and start changing the way we approach things. So why not bring in somebody maybe as an advisor for the rest of the season? And I got to thinking about this the other day. Is another friend of mine was saying, if the Orioles don't make the playoffs this year, somebody's got to have accountability, and maybe it needs to start in the front office. Well, Elias did bring in what was needed this year. He did bring in what was necessary to take the next step. I mean, he brought in a closer. He got us a starting pitcher that was an upgrade from Grayson Rodriguez. He brought in another starting pitcher who could fill in the middle part of the rotation. He brought in a bullpen arm. He brought in a long-term contract and power hitting right-handed first baseman, Pete Alonso. And he got a right-handed hitting power outfielder, or so we thought, while unloading a injury-prone player at the same time. And it was up to the manager to get these players to perform. Gunnar Henderson hasn't performed up to expectations at all. And, I even had a few people who griped at me about how I've picked on Gunnar Henderson recently, but it's not been recently. I've been picking on Gunnar Henderson all year. It's not just been recently. I have talked about Gunnar Henderson quite a few times in the podcast and quite a few times in my articles. The pitching staff, until recently, had not fulfilled what we were expecting. Partially because of injuries, partially because we hadn't had the actual pitching staff that was expected. And the bullpen, that was the best part of the team, has actually not lived to the expectations that was expected. So things are slowly rounding into form in certain areas and rounding out of form in other areas. And now we just need to be able to put it all together consistently. Craig Albernaz also needs to be able to take that next step, because right now he's muddling. It's as soon as he starts doing something good, it goes right back down, because he then turns around and does something completely wrong, or something that makes you scratch your head and shake your fist and be like, this guy doesn't get it. You get it. And this is supposed to be the guy that everybody wanted. So there are perks to doing things a certain way. And I'm starting to believe that, Elias might be taking the press questions, but the one person who I haven't heard anything about is Adam Jones. And I got to thinking, he was the assistant to Mike Elias last year. Could he be the person who's actually making the general manager decisions and being trained? And is that the person who is eventually going to be the general manager for this team coming into the year? Because why wouldn't he be a person who is vocal and focused, talking about what's going on with the team, when in the past he has been? And that's something I want y'all to think about. Could it be Adam Jones might be the actual general manager in training and possibly making the general manager decisions at this moment? And Elias is just the face of it. Because Elias is not the general manager. He's the vice president, or he's the president of baseball operations. But Adam Jones, who had been critical of certain things in the past when we weren't doing things right, has all of a sudden been silent. Where's Adam Jones? What do you all think? Let me know in the comments. Or send me your thoughts. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on X, formerly Twitter. And you can also find me on TikTok, Facebook, pretty much everywhere. I'm at SRJ Heckman. Anywhere your podcasts are played, you can find me. You can always leave comments. Definitely always look forward to comments. A lot of people do talk to me on X, so you can always talk to me there, send me questions and everything like that. I'm always looking to hear what you all have to say, and I do definitely, when I do talk to people, I utilize that in my articles, in my podcasts and everything like that, because you all are the vibe of what's going on. You all help me make these things happen. So I do definitely want to hear back from you all and know what you're thinking. It definitely gives me ideas and thoughts and everything like that, but it also gives me a pulse of what Birdland itself is thinking when doing this. So please, always, if you want to know something, send me a message or comment on a post or comment on an article. Don't forget to check out thebaltimorebattery.com, because without the Baltimore Battery, we wouldn't be here. So find the Baltimore Battery on TikTok and X, formerly of Twitter, at the Be More Battery. Like I said, you can find me at SRJ Heckman, and the Final Strike is also on Twitter, formerly of X, at the Final Strike _. Also want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Advanced Mobility Solution, formerly Scooters for Rent. Without them, the lights wouldn't be on, the power wouldn't be going, and we wouldn't be sitting here. So give a big shout out to them. Remember, if you're in the Maryland, Delaware area and you're looking for mobility products, that is handicap mobility scooters, wheelchairs, manual, beach wheelchairs, and electric wheelchairs and lift recliners. Give them a call at 302 302-280-6203 and tell them Stephen from the Final Strike sent you. Till next time, Birdland, please remember, keep the beer cold, keep cheering for the Orioles, and we'll see you next time right before the All-Star break. So I hope you all have a wonderful and safe 4th of July weekend. Keep chugging along. Until next time, you all take it easy. Thank you so much. Peace out.